Just a point of order. I noticed Aaron's name did not make it into the bulletin this morning, so Aaron Larian, thank you. Would you stand now for the benediction, for the doxology?
Be seated. Did you all notice the sermon topic on the bulletin board out front today? No, you didn't. We didn't have one. There was a fear running around the church that if we put the sermon topic on the bulletin board, the church would be packed and everyone be wanting samples. I have been informed that some company copied the name of my sermon and named a whiskey after it. Now, my big amusement is I can't figure out how in the world the staff of this church knew of such a thing. So if you came for a sample or to hear about whiskey, you'll be disappointed. The sermon today is an introduction to royalty in the Old Testament. Many, many wars have been fought over who gets the crown. Who has a right to it? What do you do when you acquire the crown? And how does the crown get passed on when that king or queen dies? Many, many wars. One of the greatest events in American history. For me, it's the finest moment in American history, is when George Washington relinquishes his power, turns it over to someone else, and the world holds its breath at that moment. They can't believe that anyone who had the power of the presidency of our country would turn it over, and thus set the precedent where we continually turn it over. But there are about 44 countries, I believe, that are presently ruled with some type of monarch. And we have lots of people from Britain that visit our church or who are British born. Anyone here this morning for that? I haven't seen some of them. But if you are, I have no taking sides on royalty, but I want to talk about it a little bit. And I want to talk about it because Moses talks about it. And we are Americans who pride ourselves on not having royalty. However, how many of you watched the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Kate? Okay, and there's more. How about Prince Charles and Lady Diane? Maybe even more for that. Statistics show that 4.6 billion people watch those weddings. We as a people are fixated, all of us, on those things that are bigger than life. And those weddings are certainly bigger than life. Or at least they're a whole lot bigger than life from my perspective. Just a few little things. I'm going to do this in pounds. A pound today, an English pound today, is worth about $1.60. That's a moving target, and it varies from day to day. So if I say something is $1, it's really $1.60. But let me give you just a little example. That last wedding of William and Kate. The wedding cost $32 million. I don't know what's included in that. It does not include security. Security was another $35 million. So on the surface, the expenses that are well known to the British government are those two numbers. We know that Princess Diana and Charles' wedding was $400 million. Compare this with your budget. I don't know, some of you have daughters. Wedding cost. But how about this one? For the royal family, for communication. I don't know what's included in communication. Stamps. Maybe cell phones. Anyhow, just the communication is $500,000. Their travel allowance, $7 million. The staff to support them, £14.5 million. Property service. Now that's not to buy a property, that's to maintain it. You know, fix the plumbing, do some painting, cut the lawn, water for the grass, maybe trim a few bushes. 13.7 million pounds. Garden parties. You like garden parties? We probably don't call them garden parties. Barbecue, maybe. Come over to the house for barbecue. Their budget for that is 800,000 pounds. Catering. You would think that'd be part of the garden parties, but catering, that's another 500,000 pounds. You may want to put your fingers in your ears for this one. But they have a wine and spirit budget. 400,000 pounds. Security. 100 million pounds. And some of the titles that we hear, you know, the Duke of this and the Duchess of that, some of those are honorary titles. Some of them come with salaries. The Duchess of Lancaster. You know, she shows up once in a while for public things. She's paid 13.2 million pounds. And the Duchess of Cornwall, 24.5 million pounds. I could go on and on, but that's just a sampling of royalty from one nation. And there are people who are heavily in favor of that and would argue that in addition to the cost, there's also revenue that is brought in for that. The Queen, you know, lives in Buckingham Palace, and there's almost as many rooms in Buckingham Palace as there are in your home. She has 600 rooms. I get lost in there. 600 rooms. But there's people who go to see the changing of the guard. A lot of people, how many have seen the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace? See? If you look up, they're right. You spent a lot of money to see all that. Now, I live in a condo that's a gated community, and some of my friends are here, and we have a guardhouse. And there's a changing of the guard. One walks in, and we only have one door, but one walks in that door and one walks out. And there's people like me. I thought that Princess Di was, I have a Princess Di cup. And a lot of people buy things with royalty stamped on it. So there's an income coming in from that. Why do I tell you this? When we live in a nation that doesn't even have royalty. The Brits would tell us that we don't have royalty, but the figure for maintaining the President of the United States is 10 to 50 times what they spend on royalty. Did you hear that? One of our late members, is Joanne Redmond here? She comes the next service. But one of our members was General Al Redmond. He worked for the Nixon administration. And he and Kissinger would go all over, and when the president traveled, he often went with him. And there's a huge entourage of people that travel, and a huge expense whenever that occurs. Gigantic. Why do I tell you that? Because Moses says to the people that we all have the same problem. We don't need a king. But we all like things that are bigger in life. And therefore, he says, when I die, you are going to want a king. So you can be just like everybody else. And that you will have the opportunity to look at that which is bigger than life. Therefore, and I'm reading to you now from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 17. So Moses says, when you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, and have taken possession of it, and settled it, and you say, let us set a king over us like all the other nations around us, be sure to appoint over you the king that the Lord your God chooses. He must be from among his own brothers, and do not place a foreigner over you, one who is not a brother of Israel. The king, moreover, must not acquire many horses. Anybody have any horses? Some of you may. I assume, maybe not, but I assume the counterpart to horses then, it would be an automobile now. You don't want a king who's going to have too many automobiles or horses. you must not go back to Egypt to get more. I don't want you going back that way again. You want a king who does not have too many wives. I have to make sure I say this in the right way. I have one, and that's all that I can handle. And if there's a knife in my back, will you come pull it out for me? You don't want a king who has too many wives, or his heart will be led astray. And you do not want a king who will accumulate large amounts of silver or gold. We, by our nature, become pretty attracted to the one who has the most gold and the most silver. That's not what you want for a king. And when he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to do this. He is to write for himself, his own handwriting, a copy of the law, which is the book of Deuteronomy. He is to copy it himself in his own handwriting and carry that with him every day of his life and read it so that he knows exactly what the Lord requires of him. That he may learn to revere the Lord his God and follow carefully all the words of the law and these decrees. And he is not to consider himself better than his brothers. And when he does this, then he and his descendants will reign a long time over the kingdom of Israel. Why do I tell you that? This is the Epiphany season. Epiphany is kind of a churchy term. It refers to the time when the wise men, the Magi, come to see the baby Jesus. And it's a time of Epiphany. It's a time when the light bulb goes off. Or it's a time when we use the expression, many of my Jewish friends tell a story about the aha moment. One of the stories I like about the aha moment is about the gentleman who goes into a restaurant. He goes into the same restaurant for lunch every day. He's eaten there repeatedly. And one day he orders soup, and he's just sitting there looking at it. And the waitress turns her head and notices him that the fact that he's not eating, he's just staring at his soup. And she goes over to him and she says, "Is there something wrong with your soup? Is it too hot? Is it too spicy?" And he merely says to her, "Taste it." And when she begins to taste it, she says, "Aha, you don't have a spoon." That's one of those aha moments. But the aha moment for us in Epiphany that I want you to take with you is that it's not the amount of gold and silver. It's not the size of your household budget. It's not how many staff a person has. We could take any one of you, any couple here, and put you in a 600-room mansion and provide you with a huge budget. And give you all kinds of limousine and carriage rides. And we could declare you to be king or queen. But that does not change who you are. And when the Magi come to Christ and see the infant, and he's not in a golden crib, and there is not a silver spoon in the mouth, they say, aha. And as God works in your life, the people who enter it and become significant to you will not be the king or the queen. It is the ordinary things in life that move your heart. It is the ordinary things in life that tug at you. It is the ordinary things that light up your life. It's the ordinary things that bring you joy. It is the ordinary things that will bring you tears. And God forbid that we live our lives and not recognize that.